Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me and for the dignitaries present here, His Highness and the Minister and everybody here. So it's my role today to present you in a flash, in a very fast way, the global algae industry overview. So let's go fast. So first of all, it is important to tell you that we have two types of algae. The microalgae that are very small, smaller than 1 millimeter, and the macroalgae or seaweed that are bigger than sometimes 40 meters. So macroalgae first. This is how microalgae are cultivated across the world. The main ways of cultivating microalgae are made in these kind of shallow areas. Very few places are possible to do this kind of cultivation. This is in Southeast Asia. Then we can see that it's possible to cultivate macroalgae also in ponds. For example, this is the kind of cultivation that is possible and more interesting for Saudi Arabia. Here are some examples in Canada, in Portugal, in South Africa. Microalgae, the very small algae. These are big lakes where the algae grow naturally and where it's possible to induce blooms. They are across all over the world. This is the main technology used for microalgae cultivation, the raceways, that you already saw some in the previous presentation. So this is raceways all across the world in many different countries, from the United States to China, to Italy, so to Portugal, many places. These are another technology, closed tubes, where you can grow also microalgae. You can see here many examples. It's not easy to scale up. These are some of the largest scale facilities in the world. Then let's see how they look like, these algae. What is how macroalgae? This is the seaweed. There are many species that are cultivated across the world, but these are the main ones. In the top, we can see the main ones cultivated in Europe. Then in the bottom, the other ones all across the world. There are essentially three types, the red, the green, and the brown macroalgae. Now let's go to see how the microalgae, the small ones, look like. Here we see the pictures in the microscope, how they look like. Very, very different. These are the species that are cultivated in Europe and all across the world. The main algae, microalgae cultivated in the world is called spirulina. The real name is Arthrospira. And here we see the images of this algae. Now let's go briefly to see how we use this algae. So we see that both macroalgae and microalgae have similar applications, similar uses. We see in the right side, we can use for human food, hydrocolloids, cosmetics, food feed, and others. So this is where macroalgae and microalgae get together. And now, summarizing all of these, we see that there are 8 main applications: food, feed, health, cosmetics, fuels, soil, and wastewater and chemicals. But the real products that already exist in the market are these ones. We can see here the products from all the applications. Some of these applications are very small, like cosmetics and health applications. There are niche markets. The others are large applications, for example, wastewater or feeds or food. But let's see how this translates in reality. Chemicals, first application. Here is an example. Some microalgae can be used, some macroalgae are used for making bioplastics. Here are some examples. For agriculture, let's see, here are some macroalgae also that are used for biostimulants and feeding agriculture applications. Microalgae, the small ones, are also used like this. This is just an example. For feeds, one of the important applications for feeds is for ornamental fish feeds. Here are the many products. There are hundreds of products for ornamental fish feeds. But please, a warning, this is a niche market. There is a very small market for these, only a few dozens of tons, because it's enough for all kinds of feeds. Microalgae are usually used in small quantities, 5%, 10%. Feeds, let's see, aquaculture feeds. This is one of the main applications of algae. It's very, very important. It's used mostly for hatcheries, the start of the aquaculture process. Then for feeds. Microalgae and macroalgae both are used for pet foods. In this case, I have the example of horse feeds. There is a wide use of, in this case, microalgae for horse feeds, but there is also macroalgae also. Farm animals, here some examples of the use of both microalgae and macroalgae for farm feeds. Let's see food. This is one of the most interesting applications. Between 3–5% of some microalgae are used in food to make cookies, to make all kinds of products. Then for health applications, nutraceuticals. This is one of the best well-known applications for microalgae. There are many species of microalgae that are used for nutraceutical applications for all kinds of benefits. Now let's see cosmetics and cosmeceuticals. There is a huge application of microalgae. Many times it's used as a combination of algae, the plankton. Here we see the application for microalgae, very small market, but a wide range of possible applications. For health and pharma, this is my last slide. This is a very interesting application of some seaweed that are used in this first case, carriage loss for flu, and the second case is a very interesting product that is being developed in China for Alzheimer's disease. And inshallah, I hope that I was able to give you a flash presentation. Shukran.